This is a podcast by the Straits Times.
Hi, I'm Li Xueying, and you're listening to Asian Insider. In this episode, the Straits Times South Korea correspondent Wendy Teo answers the question, is South Korea a lonely country? Hello, Wendy. It's good to have you on the show.
Hi, Xueying. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so Wendy, you've lived in South Korea for, I think, 6 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And two of them, the last two, as the Straits Times South Korea correspondent. So for readers, people outside of South Korea, we see South Korea as, is known for its K-pop, is known for its tech prowess. And of course, in the last year or so, we have also written quite a bit about the political turbulence in South Korea. But one thing that you have also delved into at some length are some of the social challenges that South Korea faces. Mm-hmm. And I think one of them is that of loneliness. So I'm curious to know, Wendy, why did you pick up on this topic? Is Seoul a very lonely city in a very lonely country? Tell us about that.
Okay, I picked up on the story because of the initiative that the government came up with to combat the issue, which is the Seoul Hut convenience store. It's called Maome Pyeonijong. So they came out with this issue because they realized that it has reached a critical point in Seoul. Like Seoul is like all metropolitan cities in the world. Mm. It's where the younger people will flock to for higher education, or like others will go there for work opportunities. So, when you go to such a big city from a small town, you have limited budget, so you stay in a small flat, so you already feel rather sad. And then probably you're not from Seoul as well, so your social network is not there. So all these gives rise to loneliness. Then, with big cities, everyone is very busy with their own lives. So it's very easy to fall into social isolation. And the problem is quite concentrated in Seoul because of the urban-rural spread of South Korea. It's very stark. Okay. So actually, South Korea has a population of 53 million people, but actually more than half of these people are concentrated in the Greater Seoul region. So the Greater Seoul region refers to Seoul City itself, Incheon City, and Gyeonggi province that surrounds it. So within this area itself, you're talking about 26 million out of 53 million people. So that's why the problem is particularly bad in Seoul.
Right. And you're talking about young people coming there to work, and they tend to live in flats by themselves. Small. Right. Yes. So I was taking a look at the numbers that you had. So 35.5% of all households in South Korea are single-member households.
So out of this 35% single-person households, more than half of it is actually by the young people. And then the elderly will be the second demographic at about 30%. So maybe I can explain why this is so. So like I mentioned earlier, Seoul is the capital. So this is where all the young people go there for higher education, like university education, and also for job opportunities. So in South Korea, university is very important because it sets your career path. I mean, it sets you for life in a way.
So pretty much the same for all East Asian societies.
Yes. But I think it's kind of particularly acute in South Korea because, they have this very notoriously competitive college entrance exam called the Sunung, where like it happens once a year and like the planes cannot fly, the traffic cannot go, everything has to be very silent. So it's a huge thing in this country. So a lot of these young people, what they do is they stay in a small flat by themselves so that they are not distracted, so that they can just focus on studying. So
no such thing as hostel living.
It's not really hostel living at this point, but okay, I think it's half. I mean, there's a bit of that. There's this like koshwon where you live to study, and then there are others who probably have already graduated from college and they're looking for jobs, and they sit for this civil service examinations, which is also very difficult. So I think those who are familiar with Korean dramas would have seen it. Like people take the exam many, many times to pass. And then sometimes it leads to depression because, you're just studying all the time and you're under so much pressure.
So, as you go about your life in Seoul every day, how do you see such, phenomenon playing out? How do you see them manifesting? Like, do you see these kids, are they often, cloistered in their apartments by themselves? How does it also play out in terms of mental health statistics and other kind of data points?
So Because I am rather in central Seoul. So in central Seoul itself, you don't see that problem so much. So the problem is particularly acute, more on the outskirts where the housing will be cheaper. And that's also where the elderly will stay because it's also cheaper.
Right.
So this is why the Seoul metropolitan government's heart convenience stores are actually located in these areas. So they have identified where the concentrations are, and then they kind of worked with the local governments there to set it up. So the one that I visited, it's in Gwanak-gu. So the Gwanak-gu has the heart convenience store because they have the highest proportion of young people studying for both the civil service examinations and the college entrance exams. So they identified the demographic and they wanted to solve the problem right there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not just the lonely city, right? It's the lonely districts within the lonely city in
Yes.
this lonely
Yes.
country.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with regards to these districts that you've identified, what sounds quite concerning is that there is a confluence of both the lonely young and the lonely elderly being in these neighborhoods together. So what does that look like in terms of the kind of landscaping in these neighborhoods? Is it that they do tend to be populated by small flats with single-member households? And are there no like community services aside from these new initiatives that you're now talking about? Are there no other communal activities that have taken place over the years?
Oh, actually, there are. So I had so much information that I couldn't distill into one article. So the Gwanak-gu that I visited is in the southern part of Seoul City. So the landscape, I mean, it's not your modern Seoul. It's kind of like the lower rise apartments, and it's very narrow roads, like it's all cloistered together. And it's quite a different landscape from central Seoul where, you see the tall apartments, you see
The
the very
skyscrapers,
fancy.
yes.
Yes. So it's kind of more suburban in that sense. So some of them really live alone, but the community service centers are actually great. So I had this opportunity to visit one of them, not the Heart convenience store, but another one of them where, they actually have this small little shop within the center where they sell clothes, shoes for really cheap. And they even have a cafe where it's like a nominal fee. So this is trying to draw out like the old people to come to the center, spend time together, and then like they just have a drink, or like they just take up lessons. So it can be cooking, or it can be like gardening, something that the old people will enjoy. So I mean, the Heart convenience store has that idea. It started from this basis. Basically, you want to draw people out from their shells. You create this very nice environment, and then people will come out with their shells, and hopefully they will try to speak to other people who share the same plight as them, share the same situation as them.
I would like to ask you a bit more about that in a bit, but before we go there, I was curious to know whether the young people also come to these places, because from what you described, it sounds more targeted at the elderly.
Yeah, so for the Heart convenience stores, like when I went there, actually there were quite a wide range of people. So it's not just like the socially isolated people who go. Actually, so people within the community, they will still go. So I saw even young children, like they were curious, so they came. And then ramyeon is always a big draw.
Yes.
And then you have just people who are really active within the community. So they will buzz around. So it's like you created this environment, and then you're just inviting these people to come. So the people that I met are like in their 30s and 40s, not the super young people, but I think it's also because of the timing that I was there. Because I was there like at 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon, where these people would probably be otherwise occupied. But I've heard that it's slowly, the younger people are coming, but they tend to come at different hours of the day, like later on in the day. Young people, they tend to sleep late and wake up late as well. So that's why some of the centers are purposely open 24/7 to cater to these.
I see. Okay. So, Wendy, as you noted, aging population is a key social challenge for South Korea as well. Would you say that, and we've talked about the young Koreans prior to this, but if we look at the elderly South Koreans, where are the patterns moving towards? Do you see that as South Korea further ages, and it is already a super aged society, are we seeing a looming of the loneliness epidemic as more of these aged South Koreans live longer and perhaps by themselves?
Yes, this is an issue. So there is this ongoing issue of lonely deaths in South
Yes.
Korea because they live alone and they are really elderly and they're sick. So when they pass on, there's no one to take care of them. So I remember I once interviewed this organization that does funerals for these people. It didn't make it to the story again because like it's just too much material. So it's this not-for-profit organization. So they started because they wanted to give everyone a dignified send-off. So what they do is, of course, they work with the government as well. When they're alerted to such deaths, they kind of like combine. I mean, I can't think of a better word for now, but they kind of like
Pool the resources together.
pool their resources, and then they come up with a send-off ceremony, and then they invite the family, if there are any, to attend. Like these people tend to be from the lower income families, which is why probably budget is also an issue. I mean, why they're living alone. So there is this social net that comes, but I mean, you cannot always reach out. Like if these people are living alone, it's the fact that they are living alone. So you have these people, you have the welfare groups checking in on the elderly, you have your soup kitchens near Seoul Station actually.
Right.
People do not see it, but if you go to certain parts of Seoul Station, those who have been living in South Korea, in Seoul for a while, you would know where these places are. There are a lot of soup kitchens surrounding the Seoul Station and they will do the regular health checkups even for the elderly. So I've seen it, like they will section up some parts of the Seoul subway underground where most tourists do not go to, and then there will be elderly people queuing up to get their health check. And then separately you have like soup kitchens where people just go there for a meal, or like they get like blankets when it's winter, they get like excess or donated goods, that kind of stuff. So there is that. And then but loneliness is an issue here. So my story about the hard convenience stores is what the government is trying to do is they're trying to nip the issue before it gets to that. So they're starting early. So like when you nip loneliness in the bud, because loneliness leads to depression.
Yes.
Depression leads to suicides. And as it stands, South Korea actually has the 4th highest suicide rate in the world. And it's just increasing every year. So in fact, I think I saw the latest data. It showed like last year there were 14,500 suicides, which works out to be an average of about 40. So the government is actually grappling with this issue. Yeah, I mean, it's a huge topic, but this story only touches on how one of the preemptive measures they are trying to do is they're trying to combat loneliness at the first stage before it leads to a more serious issue. So it's not just an aging population. Yes, it's particularly acute and severe because with the elderly, but with the young people, you see that as well.
Right. Okay. And besides these hot convenience stores, what other measures is the government thinking about in terms of helping to combat, as you say, upstream loneliness, and then beyond that, the health issues like depression before it gets to suicides?
So apart from these hard convenience stores, they open up call centers. Actually, they have a lot of call centers that are run 24/7. And I also spoke to these counselors. And what I find is great is that these counselors are mature adults who have gone through life themselves. So they've all faced issues of their own. It can be unemployment, loneliness, death of a loved one, or some of them even battled depression. So having gone through all these issues themselves, it makes them in a better position to talk to others. So some of them that I interviewed actually told me that by sharing their own experiences over the phone calls, the hotline callers actually feel better because sometimes you just need someone to listen to you, someone who can really understand. And the counselors are this very good group of people who actually understand or have even gone through this themselves. So call line, I think, is the government sees it as quite an effective route because it's so easy to pick up the phone. It's so convenient and it's anonymous. So there's no pressure of showing your identity.
So there's still a stigma to all of that after all.
Yeah, so ironically, in South Korea, the incidence of depression is considered very low in comparison to the high suicide rates. So I think the experts think that it's because there's still this stigma with depression.
Yes.
Yeah, so people do not want to seek out treatment for it because they fear the social stigma. And then it leads to a very extreme result in the end. It's quite an issue. So they are trying to do early education as well. So they've even gone to primary schools, like trying to teach them what is mental health and then like what are the measures you can take to identify. I think the first thing is identifying that you have an issue and then the solutions to it.
So I think that all these measures are great, and it is good to hear that in South Korea there's a multifaceted approach to trying to tackle these challenges. What I'm curious about is whether the root causes of mental health are actually being addressed. So, like you said at the beginning of this recording, it is a highly competitive society. A lot of emphasis is placed on certain milestones in life, whether it's the exams or the civil service entrance recruitment process, etc. And I guess social media is also another root factor. So I'm just curious to know whether there is a conversation that's starting with regards to changing the mindset of South Koreans in the first place about these high stakes in a very high stakes society.
Okay, so in terms of the competitive education sector, I mean, there are some similarities with Singapore as well. You can't change it. Like in Singapore, you remove the ranking of the schools. But,
It's a
but the
many-year process. Yes.
Yeah, but even the parents, they still come up with their own informal kind of ranking. Somehow it still happens. So in South Korea, there was talk 2 years ago, I think, to make the college entrance exam, the looming, easier. So it's not so tough. So like kids are not so stressed. But somehow, again, when you change the government, then the policies will change, the focus will change. So it will take a very, very long time. I've spoken to at least 2 psychiatrists about it. They agree that the issue is it derives from wanting to be better than the neighbor. Like for mothers, they have this, they are born thinking that I have to be a good mother, and how I am a good mother is how well my child does in school. So once you have that kind of mindset,
so much pressure on everyone involved.
Exactly. So it will take a very long time, generations, I would say, for this mindset to slowly change.
And is that starting? I mean, do you see it? Is there a serious effort to really kickstart this conversation to unwind this?
What I see now is recognition there is an issue, but I'm not sure whether they have gone to it. So I thought the most encouraging step would be trying to make the college entrance exam more accessible and less killer, as they call it. That was a good step, but I'm not sure whether that would be followed through because, they had this martial law crisis and then a new government is in power. So I'm not sure that is still on the card. So I think increasingly the younger generation, they probably see this, but they're not at the age there to really make the changes yet. Competition, it's very hard to end the competition because there will always be the competitive ones who continue. Like Singapore, I think the ranking of the schools is a very good example. You do away with it formally, but informally people still do it. You can't eradicate this.
Well, the tuition industry in Singapore is still very much thriving.
Yeah. Because you want your child to have a better chance, in future. It all stems from the love for your kids, lah. Yeah.
It does. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing all of that, Wendy. So any last words to share with our readers with regards to some of these social challenges that you see South Korea is facing?
I think that there are a lot of similarities with what South Korea is seeing and with Singapore. But Singapore, I mean, we are fortunate that we are very small, and we have a very robust government system. So a lot of the things, I think that we can make change more easily in Singapore than in South Korea. South Korea has a lot of cultural, a lot of societal, a lot of historical baggage that it needs to work through that kind of holds it back in terms of the development. I mean, it all led to the very competitive society it has. So I feel that Singapore can just see how serious the issue is in another country and kind of like take it as an example and let's not go down that path. Yeah.
Indeed. Well, thank you so much again for coming on the show, Wendy.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me again. Thank you.
Well, that's a wrap for Asian Insider. If you would like to read our column, we have a link in our podcast show notes. This episode was produced and edited by Faisal Sani. Thank you for listening.
Send your feedback to podcast@sph.com.sg. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or within our Straits Times app. Thanks for listening.